Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Teresa Bukovac. I am the founder and executive director of Progressive Anti Abortion Uprising, also known as POW. I am also one of the 2 activists who discovered the 5 late-term aborted babies who were discovered in a box labeled medical waste outside a DC abortion business. I am joined today with Senator Ted Cruz to demand that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, investigates the deaths of these babies and their killer, Cesare Santangelo, the butcher of DC. Senator Cruz recognizes the emergency of ending the mass slaughter of our children by big abortion, and it is for that reason I am honored to welcome him here with us today. His ardent defense of these victims and his passionate pleas for justice have been instrumental in giving visibility to these crimes against humanity. Joining me today is POW's Director of Activism, Lauren Handy.
The horrors of late-term abortion, partial birth abortion, and infanticide are real. I should know. I held those children in my arms. I saw them with my own eyes. I loved them. Holly, Christopher X, Harriet, On Hall, and Phoenix. Their killer needs to be held accountable. Merrick Garland, do your job. Do not be a collaborator in covering up their murder. We demand justice for the 5.
Thank you all once again for being here. I'd like to now call to the podium the one and only Senator Ted Cruz.
Good morning. We're here today calling for the Department of Justice to follow the rule of law, to vindicate the rule of law, and to vindicate justice. We're here today because the DC government still has not provided justice for the DC 5. The 5 children who were aborted in this city that medical experts believe were between 20 to 40 weeks gestation, with one little boy approaching nearly full term. The evidence suggests that local abortionists may well have violated federal law, congressional prohibitions on partial birth abortion. The 5 were originally part of a group of 115 aborted children that 2 women, including Teresa, obtained outside an abortion clinic in DC on March 25th. A few days later, the DC Metropolitan Police took the remains of 5 of the children into custody and gave them to the Chief Medical Examiner's office. In the days after the police took custody of the children's remains, 2 months ago, much of the media attention is focused on the activists, including Teresa, who obtained the bodies, not on the abortionists who took the lives of these children, and not on the government officials in the District of Columbia and what they were doing with the remains, or whether they were going to conduct an investigation. And then media attention disappeared from the case altogether. That's not going to stop us from demanding justice for these babies. I currently serve as the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee's Constitution Subcommittee. In that capacity, I wrote a letter to the mayor of DC, Mayor Bowser, and the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Chief Conti, to give them notice that they have a legal obligation to preserve evidence in this case for future congressional oversight hearings. As my letter explained, Congress has unique jurisdiction and constitutional authority over the District of Columbia. And this oversight rule is especially critical when it appears that the executive leadership in Washington, D.C. may destroy or may have destroyed evidence of serious alleged violations of federal law involving constitutional issues. We've learned that an attorney for Paul has confirmed the DC medical examiner has agreed to allow a private pathologist to examine the bodies of the 5 babies. This is a step in the right direction. But make no mistake, I think it is likely that the Senate will shift to Republican control in November. And if that happens, we will schedule hearings on the likely violations of the partial birth abortion ban and the Born Alive Infant Protections Act, including these 5 children whose lives were taken in DC. I understand that the President of the United States, the Mayor of DC, and the Attorney General cheer and celebrate the taking of unborn life. But we're standing at the Department of Justice because the Department of Justice has an obligation to follow the law. Not simply to follow the partisan preferences of the President or the Attorney General, but to follow the law. On the face of this, the evidence, the remains of these 5 children strongly suggests a violation of criminal law that to date the Attorney General is turning a blind eye to because his political preferences incline him in that direction. The Department of Justice should follow the law regardless of politics. There is a reason Lady Justice wears a blindfold, because justice doesn't have a party, and the rule of law should apply to everyone. It is time for the Attorney General, it is time for the Department of Justice to follow the law and investigate this likely violation of federal criminal law.
Thank you so much, Senator. The Senator will take questions now.
Yes.
Senator, this group says that they are a progressive leftist. Some of them have actually identified as anarchists. Can you talk about forming coalition with them around being anti-abortion?
Well, listen, I am happy to stand with anyone who defends the right to life. The right to life is fundamental. Among all of the rights we have, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you cannot have liberty, you cannot have the pursuit of happiness without first the right to life. And I will say defenders of the right to life are a broad and diverse coalition. That is a wonderful thing. And when we can stand together, when we can unite on shared values, in this instance, whether you agree with federal law or not, you might personally disagree with the federal criminal law that bans partial birth abortion or that protects infants born alive. You might disagree with that law, but it is the law, and the Department of Justice should not refuse to apply the law just because of political preferences. Yes, sir.
Senator Cruz, what word of advice do you have for young Christians who want to be involved in politics and the pro-life movement?
I would say speak out, speak the truth, and do so with joy, do so with happiness. This is a time where there's so much anger, there's so much division, and yet the truth is powerful. I believe the truth prevails. Every year we have the March for Life here in DC. Much of the corporate media doesn't like to cover it, but it is a powerful, unifying moment of people of all ages, people of all races, people of all ethnicities from all over the country who come together and with joy defend life. That is a powerful, powerful message of truth. Yes, sir.
Do you think it would be safe to say that politicians, elected officials, a lot of them, particularly on the left, are more focused on protecting themselves rather than the citizens that they serve, especially considering the January 6 hearings today?
Well, I think unfortunately for the left, the law is viewed as optional. If they disagree with the law, they refuse to enforce it. Whether it is the federal criminal law that protects these children, or whether it is the federal criminal law that protects Supreme Court justices. We saw just yesterday a man arrested for attempted murder of a Supreme Court justice. That crime was actively encouraged by elected Democrats. Chuck Schumer went to the steps of the Supreme Court and threatened the justices. The White House actively encouraged protesters to go to the home of Supreme Court justices, despite the fact that there's a federal criminal prohibition on doing so while a court case is pending. It's the only time that I'm aware of where the White House, literally from the White House press room, has encouraged the ongoing commission of a felony. And even today, the Department of Justice has not arrested the protesters that are violating criminal law on its face because the President and the Attorney General agree with their politics. Well, the law is meant to be applied regardless of party. And sadly, the violence we saw yesterday, attempted murder, a man who traveled from California with the explicit intent to murder a sitting Supreme Court justice. It was an attempt to subvert the rule of law, to subvert the Constitution and Bill of Rights, but it is also, the left is far too willing to encourage violence when it suits their political ends. Violence is always wrong, and we should enforce the criminal law against anyone committing violence, whether you agree with their politics or disagree with their politics. Violence is unacceptable, and in the case of these unborn children, the violence that was visited upon them, that took their lives, it is against the law, and just because a politician disagrees with the law doesn't mean he or she has the right to ignore it. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Cruz, for being here. And we do have several other speakers, life-affirming speakers from across the political, religious, and ideological spectrum today. Our next speaker is Tina Whittington. She is the Vice President of Students for Life of America.
Thank you, Senator Cruz, for those great words and for bringing us all out here today to really speak to bringing justice to the five. In 2013, Kermit Gosnell was found guilty of killing 3 babies. The horror of abortion became the horror of infanticide at his abortion facility. This is there's a stark similarity here to what happened with these 5 babies at Santangelo's office. The violation of federal law, partial birth abortion ban, and the Born Alive Infant Protection Act is clear law that can be easily investigated and enforced. But right now, we don't know what happened with these 5 DC babies. Is there a Santangelo's House of Horror happening right here in Washington, DC? Well, until the DOJ and AG Garland investigate, we will never know the truth of what happened to those babies. And this lack of action on their behalf is emboldening abortion advocates, abortion activists to create violence outside the womb. Now we know that they're going after pro-life offices that have been firebombed. They're going after pregnancy centers that have been vandalized and also firebombed. And they're also going after churches, because these acts of violence and terrorism are either aimed at the defenseless, those who are vulnerable in the womb and cannot defend themselves, or who have been born during an abortion procedure and then violently their life has been ended through partial birth abortion or by having their necks snipped. Because that is happening to innocent people, because this is happening to peaceful pro-life offices and pregnancy centers, it's easy to turn a blind eye to it. The acts of further violence, what's going on in Santangelo's office is at the mercy of the hands of the DOJ and Attorney General Garland. if neither act, if they do not act, these cruel killings may still be happening at Santangelo's office. More harm, more injuries might be coming to pro-life people who are being targeted by further acts of terrorism and violence. And so we're here today to ask, to demand that the Attorney General, that the DOJ takes up their duty of office to end the violence and terrorism that's happening in Santangelo's office, in this potential house of horrors right here in Washington, D.C., but also against peaceful, pro-life people who are trying to speak out for the vulnerable and the defenseless and make and empower a nation and a world where women can choose life and have the resources they need and the support they need, where no woman would ever feel like they have to have an abortion to succeed. We want to see justice to the 5, and we want to make sure that no other child will ever suffer at Santangelo's House of Horrors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. I'd like to bring up Annabelle Rutledge, the National Director with Concerned Women for America.
Hello everyone. As stated, my name is Annabelle Rutledge. I'm the National Director of Young Women for America at Concerned Women for America. And let me just tell you, there's a belief that young women across this country unilaterally believe one thing, and that is that abortion is good and it's something they want. And as someone who spends every single day working with women in high school, college, and young professionals across this country, I can tell you there is nothing that is more false. More and more young women are waking up to the reality of what abortion is and what it takes from us. 5 human lives. 5 fully viable babies. And more than 100 more found alongside them. And we're standing in front of a Department of Justice that has done nothing. This is a tragedy, and it's an affront to our Creator. We know in Psalm 139 it says, "For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance, and in your books were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me." There was a Creator who knit these babies together. And we stand here, as noted, with people who don't necessarily believe everything. We don't have the same fundamental beliefs as POW on so many other issues. But at Concerned Women for America, we welcome every opportunity, as Senator Ted Cruz stated, to reach across the aisle. Because this is not about politics. This is about human life. Tina mentioned the name Kermit Gosnow. Everyone should know that name. He was once called a physician in the state of Pennsylvania, and today we know him as a serial killer. He was an abortionist who brutally took the lives of countless babies. But what he's known for a serial killer for is 3 lives, 3 babies, whose necks he snapped with scissors. Today we're here in DC, 5 lives, somewhere between the weeks of 24 to 40, fully viable lives. This is murder, and it needs to be accounted for. This isn't even just an issue of morality, this is an issue of the law, and that's why we find ourselves here today outside the Department of Justice. We join members of Congress, such as Representative Jim Jordan and also Senator Ted Cruz, who joined us here today, asking, and not just asking, but demanding for an investigation into these deaths. These precious children who likely took breath outside of their mother's womb. Justice is needed for these 5 children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is the President and CEO of Americans United for Life, Catherine Glenn Foster.
Thank you, Teresa. We're here today because those responsible for enforcing the law are refusing to do their duty. We're here today because we are sincerely calling upon Merrick Garland to do his job, to investigate the circumstances of the death of the DC-5. I spoke to the U.S. House Judiciary Committee a few weeks ago as the sole pro-life witness, and I was so proud to stand for moms, for dads, and for families. We must stand up everywhere to the sort of abortion extremism that is so tragically on display here in Washington, D.C., here in this building, with this refusal to investigate the deaths of the DC-5. These babies recovered on their way to being disposed of as if they were medical waste. These babies are potentially evidence of federal crimes. But Planned Parenthood and every local abortion business knows that if you own the politicians and if you can convince them not to look for the truth, then no one will know the truth. Investigate the circumstances of the deaths of these children. Do justice for the DC-5 and for their constitutional and their human right to life. Let us do justice to their memory. Let us uphold in whatever way that we can their rights that were denied to them in life. The DC-5, these babies, they are evidence that the rescuers who are facing federal charges for recovering their bodies, that they are heroes. The rescuers of the DC-5 should be receiving medals. And yet, in our upside down world, instead, the rescuers are the ones facing charges, rather than the abortionists who killed the children in the first place. These deaths must be investigated. Attorney General Garland, do your job.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, next we're going to hear from Janae Strachey, the Director of Grassroots at Heritage Action.
Hello. Thank you everyone for coming. It is truly a sad day that we're here. It is a travesty that we're having to call on the Department of Justice to do their job. I want to remind you all that these are small, innocent, helpless babies. These are children that we are supposed to care for. The ones that are supposed to count on us as the adults to protect them, care for them, help them grow into healthy human beings, healthy citizens. They can feel pain. They can wiggle their toes. And they may have taken their first breath outside the womb. If these babies were so-called wanted, the world would be turning upside down, calling for justice in this situation. It is a sad day when injustice happens in America. It is a horrifying day when justice is not sought, when we ignore the horrors that are in front of us. If we get to pick and choose when justice is served, you might be next. To all the passerbyers that are walking past this press conference, laughing and chanting in favor of Roe v. Wade and abortion, if you are okay with justice being served at the whim of the opinion of the people in power, you might be next. It might be your death if they don't like your political opinion, your skin color, your hair color, or maybe your last name. This is about the rule of law and justice for innocent lives. This was a wrongful killing, a painful killing, a horrific killing. And I just want to remind those in power today that the majority of Americans, even if they are not pro-life as I am, pro-life at conception, they are in favor of restrictions. They are not where you are. They are not where the big money-making abortion industry is. And all the politicians today who are refusing to do justice for these babies and are pushing for abortion on demand legislation. Abortion on demand at any time, even as it is coming out the birth canal. Those politicians are doing the bidding of the big abortion industry. They're being paid by the big abortion industry. They're funding their campaigns. The American people are not with you, and we will vote you out. We will see a culture of life in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more speakers, but I want to let you know that Representative Adderholt is on his way. We are very eager to hear from him. He has already confronted AG Merrick Garland previously, so we're very excited that he is on his way. But right now we're going to hear from Herb Garrity, the Executive Director of Rehumanize International.
Hello. As Teresa said, my name is Herb Garrity. I'm the Executive Director of Rehumanize International. I'm also proud to work closely with Lauren and Teresa and the whole team at POW, the Progressive Anti Abortion Uprising. When the news of this story first broke, the media wasted no time slandering Lauren and Teresa. Disappointingly, even some in the pro-life community repeated these accusations and lies about their intentions or the veracity of this story. I got to see, particularly my friend Lauren, publicly demonized as both a creepy fetish fetishizing ghoul, but also by many lionized as a living saint and a hero. Unfortunately, the reality is far less interesting than either of those characterizations. Lauren Handy is a human being. She is complicated and endearing and frustrating and eccentric. At the end of the day, no, Lauren Handy and Teresa Bukovac should have never had the bodies of deceased human babies in an apartment. But that is because Dr. Cesare Santangelo should have never killed those innocent babies. These children deserved better. They were human beings who were worth more than the couple of thousands of dollars Cesare Santangelo charged to exterminate them. They deserve to live and grow up to be their own version of complicated, endearing, frustrating, and eccentric. We will never know who Harriet, Christopher X, Holly, Angel, and Phoenix would grow up to be. But we can fight today to ensure that no other child faces their gruesome fate. We are here today calling on Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice to do their job and investigate these homicides. Join me in calling for them to do your job.
Do your job!
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 Justice for the five!
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 Thank you everyone for being here. This fight is not over.
Thank you. I am very honored to introduce Representative Robert Adderholt.
Thank you. It's good to be here to call attention to this tragedy that we've seen that took place about 3 months ago here in Washington, D.C. as the police discovered the remains of the 5 unborn on Capitol Hill in a Capitol Hill home. Unfortunately, their lives were tragically ended at the clinic that was run by a late-term abortionist. As most everybody knows by now, when the babies were discovered, they just made the assumption that without medical evidence to back it up, that they were lawfully aborted. but they did no autopsies and no investigation followed. However, the photos that were taken and publicly shared reveal something much different, that they were likely past the point of viability, and they likely suffered from painful abortion procedures. And one of these 3 children could have probably been born alive. These babies deserve life, but now the painful reality of their death, now that that's happened, they deserve justice. And abortionists must be held accountable for the role, and we must hold the president, we must hold the administration, we must hold Washington, D.C. government accountable for not following the law of the land. We cannot be in the same company here in the United States of America as North Korea and as China and being complicit with murder of fully formed babies. I have the privilege to serve representing the 4th Congressional District of Alabama, serve on the Appropriations Committee for the Commerce, Justice, and Science, and I've already brought this to their attention and have asked them to look into this. This needs to be investigated, this needs to be stopped, and to make sure this never happens again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Representative Adderholt will take questions if we have any from the press.
What was your reaction to this man, this young guy who was arrested with a firearm with the intent to kill Brett Kavanaugh and his family?
Well, I mean, certainly, I mean, it's totally unacceptable. I mean, we've come to a place here in the United States of America that, you know, 20 years ago, you've not even dreamed of that happening, maybe even 10 years ago. But unfortunately, we have come to a point where it's so unbelievable that somebody can be so passionate about that they would go out and try to kill a member of the Supreme Court or any other official, elected official. I mean, you know, myself, I serve as an elected official working on these issues, but, you know, we have to go by the rule of law in this country. That's what this country was founded upon, and that's what, if we're going to have a republic that lasts, and I see it from countries around the world, the countries that have all the upheaval, all the problems with their governments, is when they don't enforce the rule of law. And that's what we need to make sure that we do in this country. And there's no place for what we saw just this week with the presumed felon that was found near the Kavanaugh home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Adderholt. Such an honor to have members of Congress here today standing for justice for the 5. We do have one final speaker. Please welcome Savannah Deretich with Students for Life Action.
Hello, everyone. My name is Savannah Deretich, and I'm the State Government Affairs and Public Relations Coordinator, Students for Life Action. It breaks my heart that again and again we have to be out here demanding justice for these 5 innocent babies that were so violently and quickly ended. Just like I said last time we were out here, if anyone looks at these images, at these 5 precious babies, and their hearts don't feel like they're being ripped or that they're going to throw up, you've lost your humanity. The abortion industry promotes a culture of death and hopelessness disguised as female empowerment. This billion-dollar industry thrives off the lie that we cannot be equal, have a career, or have success in life without the violence of abortion. This is the biggest lie to women like me. Having children doesn't disempower us. I believe it empowers us even more. We do not have to reject our natural design of our bodies in order to be equal to men or to succeed in this world, as if the ability to create life were a weakness rather than a strength. It empowers us to embrace our fertility, to embrace the gift of life, and to embrace who we are as women. We hope and pray that the mothers of these 5 babies find redemption, hope, and forgiveness. I cannot imagine what they are going through right now. This violence must stop. Violence in the womb leads to violence in the streets. If people can justify violently killing innocent babies, there's no limits to the violence they'll bring against people who in their minds aren't innocent. The people who justify killing these babies are some of the same people who storm churches, firebomb pregnancy help organizations, and travel to California and Maryland to attempt to assassinate Supreme Court justices, like we saw yesterday with Brett Kavanaugh's neighborhood. If we allow this violence to continue, it is going to get perpetually worse. As a society, we must start on a better path by giving justice to these 5 babies. These 5 children had so much potential, so much hope, so much innocence, and so much life. In seconds, that was all completely stripped away, and this happens to 2,363 babies daily. Since this act of violence, students all across the country have been inspired to speak more boldly for the preborn and ensure that these 5 will not die in vain. Students for Life Action demands justice for the 5. We must continue to honor them and always remember the 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, everybody. Before we go, let's make sure Merrick Garland can hear us. Justice for the 5!
Justice for the 5!
Justice for the 5!
Justice for the 5!
Justice for Christopher!
Justice for Christopher!
Justice for Harriet!
Justice for Harriet!
Justice for Angel!
Justice for Angel!
Justice for Holly!
Justice for Holly!
Justice for Phoenix!
Justice for Phoenix!
Justice for the 5!
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 Thank you all for being here.